Nila Cruz already provided me with a draft of what will be the libretto, a sort of treatment of about 65 pages. Based upon that, then we started working on it a little bit, slowly. We had our meetings, but most of 2012 was spent on the libretto taking shape. By the beginning of 2013, I started working on the music already. That's when I started setting the first words into music, and the libretto was not finished yet. We were a little behind schedule. So the definitive version of the libretto came this year in June, with all the translations and all the everything that had to be done, because there were so many languages in it. Mainly Spanish and English, which I'm comfortable with, and we had also a lot of Japanese, and we have some Russian, and we have bits of French and German, and then we have a whole area in Quechua also that I really wanted to have in the opera. So you can imagine the complexity of having a translation, and the translation being supervised, so that it can actually reflect the intentions of the original writer, and then myself just sitting down and trying to make sense of the rhythm and how it makes. So I actually requested from each of the translators a file where they will give me not only the translation but also the syllabification, like every syllable separated and the syllable that's supposed to be stressed in capital letters, so that I will know what's the natural rhythm of the language. And a recording, an MP3 recording, also to listening to them speaking it at like regular speed. So by June, July of this year, I went to England to the Glymer Music Festival to meet with Sir Andrew Davis. And that was my first kind of workshop work session on the libretto. Excuse me, on the score. So we spent 2 or 3 days, I think, with Andrew Davis, going through all of it, and I had written by then about 40 minutes of music. So initially the idea had been that I will be writing mostly the piano vocal score. We have a workshop in July of 2014 where we want to work with what the music that has been written so far. But I don't work that way so much. So I have been orchestrating parts of the music. So some of the bits are fully orchestrated. Some of the bits are just drafted. Like some of them are like written in short score versions. So it's not really a piano vocal score.
Okay.
So we are hiring someone else to do the piano reduction because of time. So anyway, that slows me down a little bit too, because when you fully orchestrate parts, then it slows you down. But I think it gives me a better idea of what the work is going to sound like in the end.
Sure, absolutely.
Rather than just writing for piano, which is really not what I have in mind. In the end of September, we met in New York with Kevin Newberry, our director now, and Nila Cruz, to take a look at what I have been writing so far. Kevin really came on board recently.
What prompted the change in direction?
I think it's different kinds of vision for the opera that Stephen had and the rest of the team had. And so we agreed mutually that actually it was not necessarily a match. And we, started looking for someone who would be more like aligned to what we were offering, we were thinking of. And when Kevin came on board, I actually talked to him, and I think right from the start I saw that he really actually understood and shared that vision, The other thing I like is he's my contemporary. I mean, I think this year he had Premier Oscar. He did also Doubt, an opera version of Doubt. And he's done some work with Broadway, which is also kind of exciting because it brings a different perspective to things in a way. So when we sat down with Nilo, I showed him what I had written, and he was very much interested in it, And then it became official and so forth. Yeah. And now we had our first work meeting properly with him and Andrew Davis and Renée Fleming Lyric Opera Chicago just a few weeks ago. I've written so far about 70 minutes of score, which is only half of it, so I still have half to be written. And the schedule now is by April 1st of next year, I should be delivering as much as I can of the finished score, and so that the musicians can start already rehearsing for the workshop.
How are you feeling about what you have right now?
Well, you know, one of the things is that I've really never worked on a piece of this scale. And for example, I wasn't working chronologically. Like I have bits of the first act, so I have about 40 minutes of the first act just in bits and pieces. But add to that about 35 minutes of the second act, and that actually I decided to write the first scene of the second act complete.
Okay.
So that's about 35 minutes of a whole unit. That actually was really rewarding to work on. But it feels like a standalone piece to me somehow. Like the whole act, you know, is like a 30-minute piece of music. And I thought, wow, and this is just one out of 6 scenes that we have. You know.
It must be a little exhausting to sit down and try to filter all this into a computer or page or whatever it is that you're using.
It is, you know, sometimes you run out of ideas and you just have to give it time. I'll come back the next day and see what you got, because I don't want to press myself to writing something that I wouldn't be satisfied with. And for the most part, I try to have at least a musical idea that is meaningful and interesting, that I can actually serve the lead, you know, the scene, or connect things. The good thing about the libretto is that it's very tight and very compact, so there is no time to be wasted. I usually find myself sometimes like crossing out a bit some words, and I call Neil and I say, is it okay to take out this, or is it okay? And he's very, very, very nice, very flexible with all these changes. I really have my own plan where I have said how many minutes each one of the little bits has to last, and so I try to keep track of that, also not to lose the global vision of what is going on, because when you write bar to bar, you know, you also have to have a perspective from outside.
Absolutely. Also, what I'm hearing for you say this section feels like a big 13-minute piece, I would guess that it is so much through composed rather than blocked in sections, that it flows from one thing to the other.
The interesting part about that particular scene, that's a very special scene in the whole opera, because that scene is kind of the passage of time. You know that this happens on the course of many months, but like the first act basically is devoted to events that happen on that night and the nights after. So we are trying to understand where we are at, and the impact of the terrorists coming into the house, and the shock that comes afterwards, and the beginning of the negotiations. But that's it. And then the second act, you have, I mean, we have to finish the opera. So you have the ending that has to be devoted to the resolution of the conflict, but you have a part of that act that has to be devoted to making the audience understand that we have been in this mansion for several months. So that's why we came up with this idea of having one scene that will be depicting the passage of time in very, very short little kind of
Snippets.
Snippets, yes. So you have actions that sometimes last 1 minute, some of them 2 minutes, and they are all connected by the same musical motif, so that we can actually have the sense that these are all these different characters. And I think this is a very kind of virtuoso section for the director, and it will allow him, you know, to shine. Very much so in terms of staging.
It sounds like a great way to treat this little challenge or difference between both acts, dealing with the passage of time.
Right. That's why that one felt like a real, you know, like a real unit, even more so than the other scenes will, probably.
So the next milestone in this would be, I guess, April of next year.
Yeah, well, that's basically a deadline for myself. Okay. But really for the project, it's July of 2014, when we will all meet in Chicago, and we will hold the workshops in the course of 1 week. So everybody will be there. We will have a pianist, and we will have the singers from the Ryan Center, which is the youth opera program. We will have young singers representing different parts. and so that we can have an idea of how things flow in time and things regarding vocal writing, timing, everything that can be structural also that we changes that we want to make. After that, I'll just go back to the drawing board and keep working on. If I haven't finished the whole score by then continue composing, and then after that, orchestrating.
Are you guys doing any behind the scenes tracking of this whole process? Like when you go and do the workshop, are you going to be taping this for reference, for anything?
I talked to the director of communications, Susan Madison Mayer, I
Yes.
think you might remember her. So we started in this meeting in November. It was all recorded, it was all photographed and registered, so we have it. We'll keep that material for later. We have another meeting actually to work on the music, the same people, Kevin, Andrew Davis, Renee, hopefully also Nilo will be able to be there because he wasn't able to come this time. And then that will be in April of 2014.